Good morning. Welcome to Coffee with the Pastors.
On Theological Tuesday.
Theological Tuesday.
I feel like we need to come up with like theme songs for each of these
Ooh,
days.
that'd be fun.
Like, it's Theological Tuesday.
How about we pass that along to our minister of music? So, John, if you're watching, your new task.
Hop to it. Well, we were thinking about something that we kind of touched on in worship on Sunday, and thinking about how we can talk about it a little bit more. We went up to the historic sign up in the church graveyard and thought a little bit about the foundation on which the Oakton Church of the Brethren is built. So if you've ever heard some of the history or been here and noticed that the church is right up against a cemetery, and part of it is a historical part. And in that, there's a historic sign that tells a little bit about the choice that Oakton Church of the Brethren made to put itself where it was. So they first met on Christmas Day in the early 1900s, and were trying to decide whether it was appropriate for a peace church to build on top of what was a Confederate fort site in the Civil War. And so there was a lot of debate about whether it was appropriate or not. And I think what finally kind of turned the conversation was there were those that believed that it could actually be a pretty significant witness that the church be built on top of a place so that the church could transform it, so that it would no longer be a place of war but a place of peace. So so we've been thinking about, since this Peter being the rock and Oakton's history of being built on a different kind of foundation, what it means to build on top of different places.
So one of the things that I didn't touch on in my sermon that I thought I might was, remember, one of the rocks that Jesus might be gesturing to when he talked about this rock I build the church might be the literal entrance to the gates of Hades, right, in this pagan shrine location in Caesarea Philippi, which is a really interesting interpretation as far as taking the literal stones to the gates of Hades. But the meaning is awesome if it's possible that the church be built on places that are sources of death, sources of destruction, and literally the church stands above, church stands against, the church stands as an opportunity for transformation over and against these forces of evil, death. And in a sense, that's exactly what happened here, right? When the church built on this fort site, this place of war.
So there's certainly places in the history of the church where building on top of other foundations is not good. All you have to do is go into the Holy Lands and see how the church often kind of co-opted holy sites from other faiths, and in their conquest of others would build a church on top of their holy sites. So there's certainly a certain amount of colonialism that can come into building on foundations in hopes that you can transform them. So we add that word of caution. And certainly there are those that are becoming more and more conscious of Native Americans that were in their area and the land that we took from a lot of these tribes. So it's not a pure image in this sense, but when we think about it in terms of the power of the gospel to transform something, I think it's especially significant when we're talking about a place that was a place of war and a church that has made a commitment to living peacefully. Being a different kind of witness. And another place that's always been like that for me is the Dunker Church on the Antietam battlefield. You have right across the street, you have this huge museum all about the
The bloodiest day in American history, right?
The bloodiest day in American history, and talking about the two sides, and monuments that even seem to glorify it, or at least make it seem less bloody than it actually was. And then right across the street, you have this Dunker Church that stands almost in the midst of the battle, that had bullet holes in its wall, and ended up being a makeshift hospital for both sides. It bore a different witness, and so I think, in that sense, when the foundation is transformed from something of death into something of gospel, obviously there's that is part of what it means to be the church.
And I mean, isn't that just that's the story of institutions possibly, but it's also the story of individuals.
Yeah.
The gospel taking hold of each of us and transforming us from creatures that might be proponents of death into proponents of life.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the Christian witness.
Yep.
Thanks for pondering with us.
Don't you have a joke for us?
Oh, yeah, we've been talking a lot about rocks.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta get the wording right because I always mess up punchlines. Audrey, most people take rocks for granite. You get it.
Because granite's a type of stone.
Yeah, there you go. Hope it was worth it.
That's right. Happy Theological Tuesday.